Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Cooking with Casey, where we make cooking simple. Today I have a really easy Italian bread recipe that I'm so excited to share with you guys, and this is literally going to taste better than if you bought it in the store. So keep watching. Alright, so when you make Italian bread, the first thing that you want is 8.5 ounces of warm water. And you want this to be warm because this helps your bread rise, but you do not want it to be hot because if your water is too hot, it will kill your yeast. You want it to be around 100 degrees. So 8.5 ounces of warm water. Next, we're going to add our yeast, and this is 0.15 ounces of yeast. We're just going to add that directly to the water. This is a straight dough method, so it means you just add everything to the bowl, which is my favorite because it's easy, and mix it together. Third, you are going to want 14 ounces of bread flour. Now you might say, hey Casey, can I use all-purpose flour? And yes you can. But is it going to taste as good? No, it's not. You cannot get the same amount of gluten development from all-purpose flour that you can from bread flour. So it is very important whenever you make bread to use bread flour because that's going to give you the gluten development that you need. After we get our flour in, we are going to put in our salt, and this is 0.25 ounces of salt, and we're just going to dump that over the flour. Now, this is also important. Whenever you're dumping salt into your bread, you want to make sure that it doesn't directly touch your yeast because salt kills yeast. So whenever I do it, I always like to do the water, yeast, and then flour, and then salt on top of the flour so it's not directly touching it. And our last ingredient is half a teaspoon of molasses. I couldn't find my half a teaspoon, so I have a quarter and I'm going to have to do it twice. You could also use corn syrup for this, or honey. You could probably even use maple syrup. I've never tried maple syrup, but I have used corn syrup and honey, and those both work really well too. And it's just the same amount. A quarter, well, a half, because I did a quarter twice, sorry. And that's it. And then you just put it on the mixer. So, whenever you're baking bread, it is very important that you mix your bread for the amount of time that you are supposed to mix it. Now for this bread, I'm using bread flour like you're supposed to. So I am going to mix this on my with my mixer with a dough hook for 8 to 10 minutes. Depending on how long it takes, it should probably only take 8 minutes. If you're using all-purpose flour, it is not going to take you quite as long to mix your dough because there's not as much gluten development that you can get in all-purpose flour, so you're probably going to want to mix it only like 6 minutes if you're using all-purpose flour. So here we go. Medium speed. I don't know if I said that or not, but 8 minutes with medium speed. This is what it looks like whenever you first start mixing it, and you do not want to add any water to this at all. You really just want to let it mix, and I promise it will come together and it will be beautiful. And I'll show you in a few minutes what it looks like as compared to now. Alright, now as you can see, this has been mixing for about 3 minutes, and it is pulling all the dough from the side and it's starting to come together, and that's exactly what you want. Alright, this is on its last minute mixing, and as you can see, it is looking very smooth. The dough doesn't look ragged, and that is what you want. So it has 30 seconds left to mix, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. Alright, so our dough has been mixing for 8 minutes, and I am taking it off, and I will show you what it looks like. So, here is what the dough looks like, and you can see that it's really smooth. So an easy way to tell if it's mixed enough is to take a small piece of it, and you just want to stretch very gently, and just keep stretching until you get it really thin. And by the time it's thin enough, you should, see if I can show you. You should get it so thin that you can see your fingertip through it without breaking through. Well, it did break a little bit, but it's done. and that's what you want. So then I like to take it out and I like to just round it into a ball, just like that. And then we are going to put it back in the mixer bowl. You can use a different bowl if you prefer, if you want. I just prefer to use my mixing bowl because it comes with a lid. And then it comes with a lid on top of it. And then we're gonna let it set for like an hour and a half to double in size. All right, so it has been about an hour and a half and our dough is doubled in size. It's looking beautiful. So now what we have to do is punch it down. All right, so now that we have it punched down, I just like to pull it out on and put it on the surface. Let's see if I can get it better. There we go. All right, so then I just like to make it into a rectangle shape to make it into the loaf shape. And that's good enough. And then what you do is you take from the top and you roll in and push down. You want it to be really tight because you don't want any air bubbles to be formed in between. And you also want to make sure that you keep it the same all the way across. So you don't want to just roll it in and then, because then the ends will be not as thick as the rest of the loaf. So if you have to, whenever you get to the edge, just pull it out a little bit and then just keep rolling it in on itself. Keep pushing down. And then whenever I get it to the end, I just like to take it and just roll it out a little bit. And then I'll just push it down. And you can roll it a little bit thinner if you want it more like baguette size, but I like it about this thickness. And then you just place it onto a baking sheet. Now I love Silpat mats. I use them for everything, and I can leave the link for these posted in the description. But I think that they are totally worth the money. It's amazing the things that you can do with these things, and I think that if you're going to do a lot of baking or anything like that, that it is really, really important to have one of these. Well, I guess it's not important, but it's definitely a lifesaver. So I strongly suggest having one of these. So here it is on our mat. If you don't have a Silpat mat, I would probably spray this with or the pan with pan spray. And also sometimes just for an extra added crunch, I will sprinkle my Silpat with cornmeal, and that almost gives it like the crunchy bottom, like if it was baked in a hearth. I didn't do that today just because I don't have cornmeal, but I do like to do that sometimes. So we're just gonna leave it on the pan and we are gonna let it rise for probably another hour until it doubles in size, and then we will put it in the oven. Also, you want to make sure that you cover this because you don't want it to dry out. So we're going to cover it, let it rest for an hour until it's doubled in size, and then we'll be back. So when you have about half an hour left of your proof time, you're going to want to turn your oven on to 425 so that it is hot and ready whenever your bread is ready. All right, so now our bread has proofed and it is ready to go into the oven. So what I do now is I take a lamb, I'm not really sure what it's called. Anyways, you just slide it down your bread to slice into it. And you want to do this 3 or 5 times. Oops, I just ripped it on accident. And that's going to give you your marks. And then once you're done with that, you're going to just wet your hands and wipe this down with water. When you're done doing that, then you are going to want to pop it in the oven. Okay, so now this is ready to go into the oven, and I'm gonna throw it in. Now, another really important thing whenever you are baking Italian bread to get that really crispy outside is you're gonna want to steam it. So I don't have a steamer in my oven. If you guys do, I'm jealous. But what you can do is place a cast iron skillet on the deck of your oven and let it heat up with your oven. I don't do that, and I do not recommend doing this, but I just throw the water on the bottom of the deck to produce steam. And then we shut it. And you want to bake it with steam for 10 minutes. Now, because I don't have an oven that produces steam regularly at intervals, like every 2 minutes I'll open my oven and I'll throw some more water in there. If you have a cast iron skillet on the bottom of your oven that you poured water into, you're just going to want to check it and make sure that it's still steaming for the full 10 minutes, just so you know. All right, and here the bread is done. So I really like whenever I get like a really, really golden, crispy outside. I think that it tastes a lot better because you've had caramelization. But so what you're gonna do whenever you pull it out, if you're not sure if it's done, is you tap, and it should sound hollow, which this one does. And then there it is, and you can hear that crust. It's so crispy and nice, and that's what you want.